And I think we're live here. Just tell me how the audio is. I've got my wireless microphone on. Got my screens arranged. Picked up breakfast, but I did not. I haven't started on it yet. Just started on my morning drink. A little bit more time to come in, but I still have things in a real disorganized fashion. So I'm just waiting for the kind of a first input on how my audio is doing. I do have an indication from my wireless mic. I mean, everything looks good there. And I have backup microphones. I even have a backup headset now. Good quality brand, Anker. And it has a USB connection. I'll probably get it set up under the OBS. I have a lot of audio sources. And good morning to everybody. Okay, and I just saw the input that about my audio level just as I typed that. Of course, being slow typist, and it's been kind of convoluted here for any possible subject for today. I'll just kind of pay attention in chat as well. I do have some things I've gone over in previous videos and have my system in the background. That's the tweener system actually booted up to the MS-DOS side. And that is where I was doing the things like the menu entries for MS-DOS 6.x. I will be continuing a little bit of that aspect with a look at the like a possible external CD-ROM. I'd like to get that internal CD-ROM going as well, and I just want to get how my drivers are lined up. And then, I mean, right now it's even where I could pull out the parallel port zip drive and go through and get its entries reduced to a menu choice within that DOS environment. But I'll have to kind of see where I do that video this week. And of course, still playing around with a little bit with the DOScember themes in that regard. There may be some aspects of the Visual Basic for DOS book that I have there. And just to see how that plays out. And then I've gone through, I want to do some console, to console into both the 8275 Ethernet switch that I have over here on the side, and then also into this new 8239 I have. The 8275 is here, just on top of the AS400, excuse me, and I have it actually powered up. It's hooked into the Ethernet network of the AS400, and then I've got the 8239 there, and be trying to work with it a little bit more and console into that. Now I've actually, as I kind of explained in the other video, I've got no modem cables, but the funny thing is I don't have any that are true 9-pin to 9, just 9-pin all the way. I have it to where those things go to the 25 pins, and I could come up with all the cables I have, I could come up with a kludge to console in, but I'd like just a straight 9-pin cable that I can do. And I probably need to even go through and check my USB to serial adapters and see if I can use that aspect. But I do have hard 9-pin serial ports on the units, like that tweener system back there has 2 real serial ports on it, which you don't really see too much anymore. So now I'm getting a little bit caught up in my morning, just looking for a little bit of participation. I don't know if people are off on other things this morning or not, but I did get at least one reply. And to tell a little bit of my activities too, I've been along with the 8239 and those 8220 units that I have there, and I have short videos I did last night that I went through and showed those going through the boot up and the link process. And I've been actually working with more of the token ring stuff, and I plan to get into that even a little bit more in the coming weeks, to go through and start working with the token ring angles. And there's even some examples out there. I was looking through some reading material last night of even the ripple stuff from token ring, and there might even be some examples I can get in there and do some coding for what I'm looking to do. And I've got to really throw a lot more time into some of the things I've just let languish for so long in the plans of the PS2 portal. I'm going through and I'm paying for having a gathering location where people can all jump in and talk about things, and that's kind of gone up and down over this last year. And I'm looking to go through and kind of maybe get everybody at least aware and start talking again, so we can move a little bit further on the concept that I have envisioned for that. But I'm not seeing my graph really change all that much, and I don't know if that's just due to I didn't go through and announce as much or lead into that I was having a live stream this morning, although that's been a really regular thing. And it just may be where a lot of my viewers are off in other things today. But I think we're doing all right here. And what I was going to bring up is this is what I was looking at last night. Down to where the link on the Ardent tool. I'll go through and I'll put it into the chat window. And then go through and okay, then I have it into the OBS now as well. Even to get to where I can interact a little bit with it. And what I was doing is I was going through and looking at this is the second edition. This is June of 1987. And okay, and they show this remote program load overview, and they talk about the concepts of loading device or requesting device. I found it kind of cool for the and they do a which user are you, and they talk everything from the network administrator or the planner to the point of the daily, down to the daily user. Talk about the prerequisites here. And it's interesting, I skimmed a little bit over that observer terminal last night, although there's the trace and performance aspect that I will go through and cover in a later video. Okay, it's good to hear that the audio levels are good. Yeah, in the Visual Basic, you know, Microsoft did so much with that, with the Windows version. And I have a lot of those Windows versions as well. Covered through, starting from the 16-bit versions up to Visual Basic for Windows 4.0 was where you could have both the 16-bit and the 32-bit environments. On the next version of Visual Basic 5, they went through and you could have the 32-bit version only from that point. And they've integrated in so much, and it was so big out there, but they only did the one version of Visual Basic for DOS. And I mean, there's some reasons there. It's probably that DOS was not as much of the leading edge or the interface once they got to the Visual Basic environment. And Microsoft for years, of course, had Quick Basic and the things that precede it. Although Visual Basic for DOS was the concept of a text-based GUI environment, graphical user interface that was easy to set up. Although you could do windowing prior, and there were other products that went through, and you could write programs in to do full screen applications from DOS that were in that text-based look. And so, well, and I don't know if Visual Basic is anything more that really has any more recent applications now, or people that are still. I'm sure there are people that are still using it out there, and it has its downsides as well. Even on the Windows side, the runtime libraries and the other aspects can make it so it's not a industrial grade thing, although it's a good way to knock out a Windows application and get the basics and the structure set up of how the windows should appear for a beginner or someone that is not very familiar with the higher level languages. But so I think it has its place as well. There's some people that say anyone using Token Ring should be chastised too, and you know, I'm going through and looking at it again because it has the aspects that I think are good now. In particular, talking about getting the microchannel systems running again that often don't have a true 100 base or 100 megabit per second adapters that have been set up for those systems. And Token Ring has been, is a common adapter for that. It's so common in the past that you could get on eBay and you could get a zillion Token Ring cards and nobody uses them anymore. I saw on the Facebook group the other day, one of the members is going through and saying, I've got these 3270 adapters and I've got the Token Ring boards, and I'm just looking at, I'm not going to use them anymore. I'm looking to what to do with them. I don't want to throw them away. Can I give them to somebody that uses them? And so even though the Token Ring adapters costed more in the day and they were a little bit more elaborate, there is the ability to go through and to use them now. I mean, they're affordable and it's easy going through and selecting getting a Token Ring adapter instead of a 10 megabit per second Ethernet adapter, and going through and getting 16 megabit per second with Token Ring instead of Ethernet. and the Token Ring PCI, and you'll have to correct me, by the time Token Ring got up to the PCI level, it should be where you have a UDP connection on the adapter, an RJ45. And you should be able to go through and use cabling. Hello, Chris. Good morning. And for your location, it's already in the afternoon, of course. Here I'm still transitioning into through the late morning and talking about things like breakfast. But you should have an RJ45 connection on that Token Ring board for PCI. And in fact, I've got it around here somewhere. I even have a brief endeavor that IBM did into the 100 megabit per second Token Ring. And they did adapters for it in PCI. And it was where it just wasn't there. They didn't do the equipment level support, and it really just wasn't a developed product. And it would have been interesting if it would have happened. It just the steam had been taken out of Token Ring at that point. That Ethernet was just beating it due to the affordability of the adapters. And so if you have DB9 connectors, and that's what IBM used to refer to as the Type 1 cable. It had the DB9 for the adapter side, and you had what was called the Type 1 connector on the MOS side, which is a hermaphroditic connector that is visible. In fact, what we can do, go through and we'll take down that for a moment, and we'll put up that for a moment. Okay. I can move off to the side, because I don't know we'll go through and interact. So on the 8220s, they have the type 1 hermaphroditic connector here, and that went to that DB9 cable, and it was still a rather thick cable, and there was cabling issue with that, but you can get media converters that go through and adapt it to the unshielded twisted pair, the RJ45, like the 8239 has here. I do have some of those media converters, and network effect. I'm interested in hearing of what the network effect of Ethernet was, but I mean, Ethernet had it was the VHS of the Betamax wars, effectively. It was affordable, and there was more manufacturers that jumped in. It was easier to build an adapter, and even I was surprised. Even Sergey he went through and talked about the announcement of his 8-bit Ethernet adapter board that he's developing. He's using Realtek chips, which Realtek, they're good basic Ethernet boards, but it's really a pretty marginal Ethernet interface a lot of the time. When you get up to the consumer level, or at this point, when you talk about having a network interface on something, you want to typically avoid the Realtek chips and go with something like the Intel gigabit adapters. The network effect is a phenomenon where increased numbers of people or participants improve the value of a good or service. And you're talking about a network effect being more of a I guess a collaboration or people getting involved into that level to make a product stronger, rather than the network effect of a network talking about actually a physical computer network, I guess. More of a people network than a computer network in that, for the network effect. And that's the other thing where Ethernet, that standard won out as well, was that it went to the RJ45 connector, went to using unshielded twisted pair cabling, and that cabling has changed over time too. It's gone through all the things from Cat3, which is 10 megabit per second, to Cat5, which is 100 megabit per second, getting into the Cat5e and Cat6 for the gigabit level, and Cat7 and all that, of course, being just manufactured terms for really not any improvement necessarily on the cable side, but it went to being the better cabling won out as well, because you have to remember, in the early days, and networking computers started from even the baseband adapters, which were 1 megabit per second, that used telephone wiring. 4-pin cabling went to the coax that was used even on the IBM side for the mainframe world. They were trying to use cabling that was in place in buildings already, or was being produced, so it would be cheap enough to buy lanes of cable. But when you talk about the coax, and Twinax never really developed as necessarily a networking product. It was purely for the IBM mid-range systems. IBM did use a little bit in the Japanese market for the multi-station stuff of interlinking computers in a network. But the cables were just so thick. When you talk about an AUI interface or that thick net and those vampire taps and going through and having the standard topology of Ethernet of going through and that coax interface, and if you had a break in the link somewhere, your network was down in certain parts or down entirely. And Token Ring, in addition to the avoiding the Ethernet collisions and things like that, had its own solution and had its own problems as well. But going through and setting up that ring topology, a lot of time in a new station coming on and adding itself to the network worked really well. And especially in the case where Token Ring matured enough to go to, now I'm sitting here talking and I guess I could, go through and turn on my webcam to go through and where people can see me. But Token Ring did go through and adapt a lot of the cabling too, eventually, to get into the RJ45 world and using unshielded twisted pair, and basically where you can use the same cabling, even a lesser standard of like your Cat4 cabling to network stuff. And I'd be surprised that PCI, I would have thought a PCI adapter would have had a not a DB9 necessarily on the adapter bracket, because look for media converters, and that does it from that DB9 to the RJ45. And really there, I would say if the PCI adapter that you have for Token Ring has a DB9 connector for the price of a media converter anyway, you can just get a new PCI card that has an RJ45 on it. But Token Ring was a lot higher cost to produce as well. So the IBM prices, so to speak, that was just a factor of the adapters. The adapters had to have even processing capabilities on the adapter, and a lot more components that made them work, and that's the reason why there was such an expense difference, even for a 10-for-1 or more expense difference for Token Ring. And but you should be able to find PCI adapters with RJ45 connectors out there just to ease so you're able to use other cabling. And really there's a need for what is a MA or a CAW to connect it all together. And the big issue with Ethernet as well, even if you use if you're using PCI adapters, you're talking about more of a modern system that you may want to go through and try and get that on the internet, and that requires a bridge device to get over to the Ethernet side. So really, I'm talking about Token Ring more of a factor of pre-PCI, where I'm talking about microchannel and 8-bit adapters on systems that can be used to link those to get them networked at 16 megabit per second we're not talking about so much of the 4 megabit per second older token ring, but the 16 megabit per second token ring. And that is, getting those stations networked is one thing. And even those older systems, there's not so much of an aspect of getting those online. In fact, you want them networked a lot of time, but you don't want them on the internet. And that just works where you have a separate token ring network for your older systems. And with the bridge devices that we're kind of looking at developing at this point, or getting some of the things in set up for that, those maybe those instances where you can just basically have a little bit of a switch, or that you can flip to get that token ring network all of a sudden online and get onto sites and have a proxied connection through that, to go to certain web pages and be able to pull in the content that those stations are able to do with the older operating systems. I was going through and talking about the book, and this is the now IBM with the token ring. They had, in fact, this is actually showing it's showing the EEPROM itself that you put on the token ring board. And even these are even, it's showing the 8-bit adapters, and these are some pretty old token ring boards, and these are actually at the level of the 4 megabit per second boards. And they talk about where that BIOS socket is, and they get down to the microchannel board. And this is actually, in fact, let me see if I can get an image for that as well. And I'll put that. So Tom is working to, Major Tom is going through to the point of a big update for the Ardent Tools site, including some pictures I've sent to him. And I've sent all these pictures to him for the different adapters. And the way I have it structured is, in fact, okay, so I'm going to go through and I'll download. In fact, this is a rather big image, and I'll have to resize it on the OBS display. But let's go through. In fact, I should just search for it because I did have a local copy. And I'm going to size it before I go through and have it on screen. In fact, yeah, and this is a humongous image. So I have to scroll it quite a bit to get it down to size so I can show it in OBS. the Major Tom didn't have a picture of it, and even when I get it down to the size, I'm getting there. Yeah, Major Tom didn't have this this particular adapter, a picture, or any information on it. In fact, I'll go through and I'll put that right over the top of that. Let's go through. Yeah, here is the 4 megabit original Token Ring microchannel board. And Major Tom didn't have any pictures of that. And so I went through, and I'm actually going to go through, and I have 3 of these adapters, and I'm going to go through and actually take apart one, just to go through and disassemble and look at a little bit of the chips, and especially even the EPROMs here are soldered in, but it has that socket, and that's what the manual refers to, is that let's go through and let's see if we can put that. I thought I had that all the width there, but it shows where that on the microchannel adapter that they show is that original 4 megabit adapter. And so that's where that Ripple ROM goes on that adapter. Now, later Token Ring boards, they had the ones after this. They when they went down through and shortened down the adapter, they had still a socket for the Ripple ROM, and then with the later ones, they had just the 2 EPROMs that were on board, and the Ripple code was actually built into those 2 EPROMs. So you didn't need a separate boot ROM chip like you did with Ethernet. They figured that if they had chips with code on it, that they'd go through and to just put it all in all the functionality into those EPROMs that were already on board. Okay. Now, and I want to go through and that's all the things to that Ripple manual that are kind of neat. I'm going to get looking at that again, and I provide the link for this booklet earlier in the chat window. Just these things about the send file request frames and things like that. I think that will be, I'll have to look at the sample programs and find out what they do, just as the examples. And, IBM in some cases, they went through to where they were very, they didn't publish documentation or kind of held it under their, out of view. And in some cases, they went through and did example code and some of the things they were working on to kind of show how the things worked. And I don't know why I'm continuing to kind of scroll through this manual. People can certainly look at this on their own, but it's just one of the aspects I was looking at. I was wanting to go through for the, see, now that I had the long adapter up, it may be easier to where I can get the other pictures up. Let's go through. I don't know if I want to get to the point where let's get that browser capture out of the way. Get me back up on the screen. And but I did pictures of all those all the different adapters. There's that the long adapter again, and let's go through the other ones. And some of these are kind of neat for all the streaming. In fact, it wasn't so long. Okay, there we go through. So look at something like this one. This is a dual LAN streamer, and it's a 32-bit board, and I don't think that has, by what it shows there, it doesn't have the 16-bit keyway on it. So it's got to be used in a true 32-bit system, of course. But that's actually two token ring links on one adapter. And that's even the data streaming level of adapter to where it's quite fast performance and does pretty well, but has those RJ45 connections on it. And is one of the very last implementations. And there's the single version as well. Through. Okay. And this even showing the single LAN streamer version, and it even still, this one even still having a socketed EEPROM on it. And I've read that code as well. And oh, and one of the things we talk about interesting for the in fact, let me get where that one is. I think that's going to be probably the auto. And I'll show. And of course, I have pictures of the bottom of these as well, or the underside, the solder side. So, what do people think that those solder pads, those unpopulated areas on this adapter do? There's that even a connection on the back bracket. This is the Auto Landstreamer MC32. So this is a token ring adapter, has that RJ45, but it has unpopulated areas on the board itself and has that back connector, which should be a hint of the functionality of what that port is supposed to do. And this even has the LEDs, but those LEDs are used for the token ring effectively as well. And those LEDs might be a little bit of an indication or an idea what those solder pad components would do. And I'll kind of see if anybody can respond to what they think those solder pad areas do on this token ring adapter, and they can respond in the chat window of what those might be, what that area might be. Now, it is interesting that even for all that, on the Facebook group, there's been an individual, and I've had a lot of side conversations with him as well, that used to do the streaming side of the firmware code, of what that EEPROM, even that may even be a flash update, a chip able to be reflashed to later versions of microcode that's on that adapter. He even used to code for these things and developed a lot of the firmware or the microcode of these adapters and other equipment associated with Token Ring. And even for that, the EEPROMs and these flash chips, they're actually, when you look at them with the hex editor, you have to do an episodic translation, because that's what the mainframe that went through and compiled the code had on it to actually see the strings on there within that firmware, within the microcode. I'm not seeing anybody answer so far in the chat window of what they may think that these unpopulated areas on this this token ring microchannel board could be. And the answer is, and it's very evident from that port that's on the back of bracket, looks like an Ethernet AUI port. And that is what the case is. That at this point, IBM was looking to include the Ethernet components onto their LAN streamers. And this one even has that, it has a 16-bit keyway, so you could run this on a 16-bit system as well. And yeah, sorry, additional components, but it was an Ethernet interface. Even though the RJ45 connection was used for the token ring side and not Ethernet, they had an AUI port, and they had the Ethernet that was tied into the adapter as well. And they decided just to cut that functionality that it was. But that's how affordable Ethernet was at that point, is that IBM was looking at just throwing it in and including it in on a token ring adapter as well, because it really was not an increased cost. But wouldn't it be cool to go through and to populate that stuff to get a working Ethernet interface onto this adapter once again. And of course, whenever you see an AUI port, or whenever you see a coax port on an Ethernet adapter, and when we're talking about connections on the back bracket, that adapter is a 10 megabit per second adapter. The coax interface and the AUIs were limited to 10 megabit per second, and it's only when you get into the RJ45 that when the adapter has the possibility of being a 100 megabit per second adapter. And you know, there are the corresponding products that IBM had for the LAN streamers. LAN streamers were the token ring side. Ether streamers were the Ethernet side. And IBM did have comparable Ethernet products, even the dual Ether streamers. And I have boxes for those. I probably have manuals and diskettes, but I don't have the, I don't think I have too many of those adapters themselves, where I don't know how I got just the boxes for those rather than the adapters in there. But, you know, Thomas was looking for pictures for that as well, and I might start having to look around and see if anybody has any of those. But the Ether streamers, they're interesting enough, and of course those are still limited to, if they work in a PS2, they were just a 10 megabit per second. There were very few adapters on the Ethernet, with an Ethernet NICs that, for the microchannel bus, that were 100 megabit per second. One is this OLCOM adapter. I've talked about that previously. And the performance really there was not 100 megabit per second. It came out truly that you could get about 13, 14 megabit per second tops out of that. And then IBM had a microchannel adapter that was for the RS6000 that was 100 megabit per second as well, but it can't be, or there's not been where it's been adapted over to the PS2 side. Yeah, and I saw you kicked out another video today where you had it released for this time frame, and I'll go through and watch that video when I get a chance. And I know that your Saturdays are busy doing your own videos and editing your own videos, but these adapters, like I said, I went through and I supplied Major Tom with all the pictures, and it's just a matter of time before they go up on the page. But there's I'm going to start focusing a little bit more on those the token ring adapters in the future, especially working with these units I've got sitting out here. Now I do have a little bit of cabling that is that's that Type 1 cabling, the DB9 to that Type 1 hermaphroditic connector, and I probably don't have a bunch of spare cabling, but you can find cabling out there for the token ring stuff as well. Yeah, I think I remember even a preceding video where you went through and tested some of your 72-pin memory, and then even what you picked up at VCF East, some of the sims there. And I got to get through and actually do separate a lot of my sims as well. I've still got them in bags, and I need to go through and sort quite a bit of that stuff, so I can get it back in service and get it into machines, get it working for me. But that's true of everything. I got to get more organized here. It's I'm just, it's so disorganized. I just have so much stuff bunched around that I need to work with. Yeah, correct. At VCF East, I remember picking up that stuff, and there's certainly some gems probably that are in there. I've probably got some gems that I have to sort through in my 72-pin sim as well. And it's funny, for the IBM side, the 72-pin sims, all that has that presence detect, and it's easier looking at. In fact, people have built, like Jim Shorney that's on the Facebook group, he's built where you actually went through and you put it into a socket, 72-pin socket, and it goes through, and it shows what the capacity is. You just have to look at those presence detect shunts that are on the sim, and you have an idea of what that, going through on the chart, what that sim actually is in the IBM world. And of course, IBM, what's really nice is they did a lot of the FRU part numbers, where you can look that up easily enough online, even to go through and search on the Ardent tool on that FRU part number if it's a true IBM sim, and you get a lead of right what it is. Kingston went through and they marked their 72-pin modules, of which microchannel adapter that those sims worked with, and so that's another way to look those up. So sometimes the 72-pin sims are easier to sort on the IBM side, based on that presence detect scheme that IBM used. And so that can be helpful in how that's up. In fact, Tom, I don't know if I can go through, if I can find the link for that. And it's getting to the point of about an hour of live stream. For all that, for me not otherwise having necessarily a big topic or anything else that I covered, I think it did well enough for all that. I'm looking through for... And, and Major Tom says the end of the year is a little bit busy for him. So, so the updates on the Ardent Tool site are not... okay, so here's that page on the Ardent tool. Okay, fast page. Yeah, there was some that was that fast page or the... So on the IBM side, there's even some 32 megabyte sims, 72-pin sims that work on certain PS2s at the upper end. So you can go through, like on my, and of course the message retracted now, but to go through, and you could have even 64 megabyte on the planar, or in some rare cases on certain systems, you could have 128 megabyte planar memory on a PS2. And that'd be like your model 80, 85s for like probably I think the KN was able ultimately to have a little bit more memory, but a lot of time 16 megabyte was a little bit of the IBM limit for quite a bit of their stuff. And in 16 megabyte, especially with the convention of a 286 CPU or 386SX, and the early PS2s, there's a lot around that 16 megabyte barrier initially, that you could reach up to 16 megabytes, but going a little bit over that on those early PS2s was a little bit more of a challenge. And some of the memory adapters that were early on were fairly horrible, and they had the BOP procedure that I've referred to before, and that's that bypass one problem temporarily. So it was there was a documented IBM procedure that you could go through to bypass one problem temporarily to get up to above 16 megabyte on your PS2, on your 386DX class PS2, to get up the memory up that much. But that's where the page I linked on the chat, that gives an indication of where those presence detect shunts are on the board, and then you have charts that that show the capacity of that. And so, but that has been an hour of the live stream, and I do thank everybody for going through and viewing. The reason I'm looking up is that's where I have it on the screen. I've got it on the big screen above me to my OBS window to go through and see what is being shown to everybody. And so I look forward to what videos I'm going to do in the upcoming week. I will try and stick to at least a little bit of the December theme, to have videos related to that, and then some of the other content I'll really have to decide what that is. I don't have videos built up where I can release them like Chris does, but and I'm sure he's got it all planned out for the videos that will be released during this month. Even maybe later on to a little bit of culmination, or it'd be interesting to see some collaboration of what some channels may do for the December theme. And even Mike's Mac Shack, that does have his PS2. He's got his P70 unit. He was even talking about doing a December video for the month from that, even for the rest of his content being related to Mac stuff a lot of the time, Apple products. Planned out for months. And you're just one of those organized people that can do that, and I'm not nearly that organized. So, but it's been a good stream. I thank everybody for tuning in. We've gone a little bit over an hour. And but all good things must come to an end, and so I thank everybody for watching, and look to see people joining the live stream for next week, same scheduled time. I've kind of settled into this time slot, and for watching the videos that I come out with in this upcoming week. Yeah, 60. I saw it growing. You reported back when it was 18 videos, and I know I've gone and I've tagged my videos, and I've tried to tag those appropriately, that if it's not relating to a December theme, not to put any sort of tag in on that, so your script would pick that up in the wrong way. But that's one video I'm kind of waiting for. There is for how you're doing that scripting to identify that Doscember tag and to add it to those lists. And I need to go through that list a little bit, and I hope people are going through and reviewing that. And I'm hoping people are subscribing to that are coming into it from outside and not being aware of some of these channels, and also my channel, to go through and to click on the subscribe button and be a subscriber. Yeah, every 2 hours, but I'll have to look through for 62 videos, and I know that a good portion of those in there are mine. That I got to look through and what the other channels are doing as well. Maybe there's some collaboration abilities or things that we can that can be done. But I thank everybody for watching, and I'm going to go through and end the stream now. Bye. It's all I have for now.